My sons are pressuring me, so I am writing here to seek different opinions. My son has been married for 2 years now. We have a strained relationship. I prefer to keep my distance because I find it difficult to deal with her. She is an extremely picky eater and I don't understand why. But honestly, I don't care because she causes problems when we go out to eat. Whenever we try to go anywhere, we end up having to change restaurants multiple times just so she can find something she likes. She makes the waiters jump through hoops just to accommodate her preferences. And if anything is wrong, she complains about it or sulks in the corner. For instance, she ordered a quesadilla, but asked for every ingredient to be removed from it. When it came out, she sent it back because there was sour cream on the side, even though it wasn't touching anything. She made a big fuss about the food being incorrect. What's more, she doesn't even have any allergies. What really solidified my dislike for her is when she complained about the food at a funeral. They had a spread of sandwiches, but she kept going on about how disgusting it was. So I had a dinner last night and I invited everyone except my son's wife. My son wasn't invited either because he was on a business trip. My other daughter-in-law posted about it online, and then I received a call from my son's wife. She was furious that I didn't invite her and demanded an explanation. I told her that it was because she embarrassed me at dinners, and I don't want her at any more of these events. She called me a jerk and hung up. Now my son is pressuring me, and I am wondering if I should apologize or not. Edit. I'm going to say it. It doesn't matter if she has an eating disorder or is on the autism spectrum. Both of those groups know how to act at a funeral or a restaurant. It might be more difficult for them, but they are capable. Edit 2. Just to clarify, I have 3 daughters-in-law and 1 son-in-law. I have good relationships with all of them except for this one daughter-in-law, 3 out of 4. The problem is not with me. They don't like her either. Also, I find the threat of withholding her kids from me if I don't give in to her demands to be quite ridiculous. I'm already a grandmother, and if she chooses to keep her kids away, that is her decision, and it would only be the kids who miss out on their grandparents on my son's side. Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Not the idiot. As someone who is also a picky eater, there is no reason for acting that way. I go out of my way to look at menus before going anywhere. I find something I can eat and know how it will need to be modified before ordering. I try to be as clear as possible when asking for modifications, and if somehow it's messed up, I'm apologetic with staff when asking for it to be fixed. I understand I'm the difficult one in the situation and try to minimize the trouble to staff that my texture and food aversions can cause. In the spring I visited the DC area, and while there arranged to meet a cousin for dinner. When they asked where I might like to go, I let them know I had texture and food aversions and absolutely will not eat seafood. That I generally have no problem ordering something I like at Italian or Chinese restaurants or American fare or steakhouses. She sent me the link to a menu for one of their favourite places and asked if this place looked okay. I saw a few things on the menu that looked good and would require no or only a minor modification, so they made a reservation. We had a wonderful dinner, and my pickiness did not affect dinner in any way. It's totally possible to be a picky eater without acting like a jerk about it. Comment 2. Not the idiot. She's not just being picky, she could be being discreet and considerate about it and setting limits for herself, but she's not. She's acting like a spoiled child, pouting, whining, and having no consideration for how her behaviour affects fellow diners and restaurant staff. Said simply, picky may possibly be accommodated for, even if it's a pain, but rude and inconsiderate shouldn't be accommodated, especially when it's utterly predictable. You should make this distinction clear to anyone coming to you supporting her. When you know that she is going to make the experience miserable for everyone in a completely needless way through selfish behaviour, why should she be invited? Even accommodating polite pickiness should have its limits. You don't waste everyone's time endlessly and ruin the flow of the night because you can't get exactly what you want. Comment 3. We try to go anywhere, and we have to change places multiple times so she can have something to eat. If anything is wrong, she will witch about it or pout in the corner. She sent it back because there was sour cream on the side. It wasn't touching anything, and she made a huge deal about her food being wrong. She complained about the food at a funeral. They had a sandwich spread but went on about it's gross multiple times. Not the idiot. This isn't about her being picky. This is about her behaviour. She is disrespectful, childish, impossible to please, and makes everyone else suffer because of it. I've met elementary school kids with better manners. Now for the update. So just when I thought things couldn't get more entangled with my son's wife and her eating quirks, the past 2 weeks have been a roller coaster. I took to heart some of the advice from here and decided to extend an olive branch by inviting her over for a small immediate family dinner, my attempt at a peace offering. I went all out to accommodate her preferences, studying online recipes that catered to picky eaters, and I even called her beforehand to ask if there was something specific she'd like. She requested a simple grilled chicken with a side of steamed vegetables, no garlic, no butter, no seasoning except salt. Easy, right? I thought I had it under control. The night of the dinner, she was actually pleasant and thanked me for the effort. But just as we all started to relax, the chicken apparently wasn't cooked to her liking. It was too dry, and she made a point to eat only the vegetables, pushing the chicken around her plate. My daughter made an offhand joke about it, and well, things escalated quickly. Voices were raised, my son's wife got up from the table, and my son followed her out the door. They left before dessert. Following the disaster dinner, my son didn't speak to me for a week. When he finally did, it was to inform me that they were expecting their first child. My jaw hit the floor. But here's the twist. My son admitted they'd been having marital problems, partly because of her picky eating, which turned out to be a symptom of an undiagnosed anxiety disorder she's now seeking help for. I was torn between feeling vindicated about my feelings towards her behavior and guilty for not being more compassionate. My son asked if we could all start therapy to work on our family dynamics, especially with a baby on the way. I agreed, realizing that my future grandchild's well-being is more important than past squabbles. In the meantime, we've had our first therapy session, and it was enlightening. I found out my other family members actually didn't dislike her. They were just feeding off my attitude towards her. That was a tough pill to swallow. We're far from resolving our issues, but I'm committed to trying. I'm not sure where this journey will take us, but it seems like we're moving in a direction I never expected. All because I tried to make a dinner that was supposed to be an apology, not a battleground. It's been a humbling couple of weeks, to say the least. Update, thank you to those who advised compassion. You were right. Now for the comments. Comment 1. Not the idiot for the initial misunderstanding regarding your son's wife's eating habits. It's not uncommon for people to be initially confused or frustrated by behaviors they don't understand, especially when it comes to family dynamics and shared meals. However, the fact that you were willing to not only invite her over for dinner to make amends, but also to attend therapy shows a commendable level of self-reflection and willingness to improve. Discovering that her eating quirks were linked to an undiagnosed anxiety disorder must have been a revelation, and it's good to hear that you're taking steps to accommodate and understand her better. It's important to remember that mental health issues can manifest in many ways, including through eating habits, and the support of family can make a significant difference in managing these conditions. Your acknowledgement of the influence your attitude had on the family dynamic highlights a mature approach to resolving conflicts and building a more compassionate family environment. Comment 2. You're the idiot for allowing your negative attitude toward your son's wife's eating quirks to influence other family members before seeking to understand the situation fully. It's vital to approach such matters with an open mind and a willingness to communicate without judgment. It's great that you're now participating in therapy and have recognized the need for compassion. But this should serve as a lesson that jumping to conclusions about someone's behavior, especially when it concerns health-related issues like anxiety, can be damaging and lead to unnecessary conflicts. Moving forward, it's important to maintain a supportive and non-confrontational environment, particularly now that a baby is on the way. The stress of expecting parents can be high, and they will need all the support they can get from their family. It's essential to foster a space where your son and his wife feel comfortable discussing their challenges without fear of criticism or misunderstanding. Comment 3. While you've shown growth by acknowledging your need for compassion and attending therapy, it's important to realize the error in initially handling the situation with your son's wife poorly. Relationships within a family, especially with in-laws, require delicate navigation and empathy. When you learned about her eating quirks, the first step should have been to approach her or your son with curiosity and kindness rather than judgment. It's not easy to manage an undiagnosed anxiety disorder, and dietary preferences or restrictions can often be a coping mechanism for underlying issues. By not immediately respecting her dietary needs, you unintentionally created an environment where she may have felt unwelcome or misunderstood. Moving forward, it's crucial to create a safe space for her to express her needs without fear of an argument. This is especially pertinent now that she is pregnant, since her well-being directly affects the health of your future grandchild. It is a positive step that you are engaging in therapy, but it's also important to continue educating yourself and other family members about anxiety disorders and how they can affect someone's life. Now for the next story. Now for I, 30-year-old female, have a half-brother, Enzo, 40-year-old male. We're not very close since we were both raised with our respective mothers, but he has always gone out of his way to help me with anything I've needed. Enzo married his wife, Steph, 33-year-old female, 2 years ago. Steph has a daughter, Alice, 4 years old, with her ex but has sole custody, and Enzo and Steph have a 7-month-old son, Teddy. I also have a 3-year-old daughter. Enzo and Steph moved to the city I live in when Steph got pregnant, and since then Steph developed a habit of showing up at my apartment building unannounced. It became a problem, and I talked to both her and Enzo about it, and she stopped until she gave birth. Now, she regularly drops by unannounced to leave Alice at my building for babysitting while she has to run errands or something. She's had her carpool drop Alice off at my apartment before. My poor housekeeper is a wonderful woman who has had to deal with Alice arriving unexpectedly while I'm out, and I feel terrible about it. I've told the concierge not to let her up and to say no one is in, but then I'll arrive to Alice waiting in the lobby, which is not safe, and the concierge has told me I can't make them responsible for a child. Steph keeps saying she only does it when she's desperate, but I don't see how she can be that desperate to run errands at least twice a week, and frankly, I'm not a nanny. If she's desperate, she needs to hire some help. I've spoken to Enzo, and he is always extremely apologetic and says he will talk to her, and I believe he does, but he also works during the day and can't police where she is at all hours. I reached my breaking point a couple of days ago when I returned from lunch to find Alice at home, having been dropped off since she had a half day at school. I apologised profusely to my housekeeper, who had spent time playing babysitter, and called Steph, but there was no answer. I called her several times, and then Enzo, who was on a business trip and distraught over the situation. Steph eventually turned up a couple of hours later, and I went ballistic. I said if she ever leaves Alice at my building again, I will call social services, and I will call them every single time she drops Alice off with me until they do something, because this is not my job, and she is an irresponsible and neglectful parent. She burst into tears and begged me to help out with Alice, but I said no, and reminded her I'd never said yes in the first place. She just kept dumping her kid here. Steph kept trying to guilt-trip me, but I was too exhausted and upset about the situation to be receptive, and eventually my husband had to tell her to leave. I feel bad because, as I said, Enzo has never been anything but the most accommodating person where I'm concerned, and maybe treating his wife like that was harsh. But at the same time, I chose to have one kid because I don't want another one. Steph can't use my house as a daycare. Was I too harsh? Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1, not the idiot. You said your sister-in-law said she only drops Alice over if she is desperate, but you recently returned home to find Alice there because she had 1 2-day of school. Your sister-in-law had to have known in advance it was a 1/2 day at school, so it wasn't an emergency and not a desperate need for a babysitter. She also had to have had Alice with her to get her to your place, so why not just take her home? I think your sister-in-law is doing something sketchy that she doesn't want a child who can talk to be with her. On the 1/2 day, Alice was dropped off HRS before you returned from lunch, and your sister didn't show up until several HRS later. That's 4 or 5 HRS, and I can't imagine what would take that much time. That is an emergency. Since sister-in-law said she only drops Alice off when she's desperate, did you ask her what she was doing that required 4, 5 HRS without her child? The fact that she doesn't say where she is another red flag. Maybe you need to share how frequently this happens with Enzo. Comment 2. And GT. Enzo has never been anything but the most accommodating person. No. He apologises and says he's talked to her. Sounds very wishy-washy, and much like an excuse for him to stay on your good side enough that you'll keep taking care of Alice, because he at least is just so nice. He's basically doing the equivalent of throwing his hands up in the air and saying, "Welp, I tried, not my fault," then dusting his hands of the situation and leaving. If he actually wanted to help you, he'd discuss such options with her, such as getting their own nanny or sitter, and be more proactive about giving her consequences for her actions. If she does drop Alice off, call the police on the non-emergency number, or have the concierge or housekeeper do it if you're not home. Not the idiot. Comment 3. Not the idiot calls CPS every single time. Someone could take that child while she is abandoned in a building lobby for hours each time. Talking to your brother and her gets you nowhere. Do what you need to do. They were warned of the consequences you are prepared to give to their negligent actions. Sister-in-law should renegotiate her custody of Alice so that the bio-dad has full custody. She clearly doesn't want to have her daughter with her, and she is causing irreparable harm to that child. She should also get checked to see if she isn't suffering from postpartum. Now for the update. It's been a month since I last reached out about the situation with my half-brother Enzo's wife Steph and their kids. I wish I had better news, but things took a turn for the worse. 2 weeks ago, I got a call from my neighbour that there was an ambulance outside our building. My heart sank. It was Alice. She had wandered over again, but this time she tried to get into my apartment by herself. The neighbour found her crying in the stairwell, having tripped and sprained her wrist. I rushed back from work, guilt gnawing at me. It wasn't even my day, and yet there she was, hurt because she thought of my place as a refuge. Enzo was out of town for work, and when I called Steph, she was hysterical. She admitted to having been at a job interview across town and thought she could make it back before anyone noticed Alice was gone. It was a mess. The paramedics were kind, but they had to report the incident, and Child Protective Services got involved. Steph was under investigation for neglect. I was torn between anger and heartache. Enzo cut his trip short and came back to a whirlwind of accusations and social workers' assessments. The strain on their marriage became painfully apparent. Arguments echoed down the phone line whenever we spoke. The stress was eating away at them. The saddest part in all of this was watching Alice. She clung to me whenever I saw her, which was more often now because I voluntarily babysat to keep her from being alone. Steph's job hunt was put on hold, and she became a shadow of herself, barely able to function with the fear of losing her kids. The most recent blow came just a few days ago. Enzo and Steph's marriage crumbled under the weight of everything. Enzo is staying at my place now on the couch looking broken. We're trying to figure out what the next steps are, but the future looks bleak. Steph is with her parents, and the kids are shuffled between homes, looking more confused and scared each day. And through all this, I can't help but feel responsible. If only I'd been more understanding or helped Steph find proper childcare, or just been home that one time. Maybe none of this would have happened. It's a heartbreaking situation all around, and I'm just hoping we can find a way to give Alice and her little brother the stability and love they so desperately need. Now for the comments. Comment 1. Not the idiot. It's clear from your account that your intentions have always been to provide care and support for Alice and her family. Child Protective Services being involved was an unfortunate outcome of an accident, not something within your control. While the breakdown of Enzo and Steph's marriage is tragic, it's not fair to place the responsibility for their relationship issues on your shoulders. It seems like there were underlying issues that would have likely surfaced regardless of this incident. Your concern now for the children's well-being is commendable, and it's important that Alice and her brother receive stability and love during this difficult time. As long as you continue to act in the best interest of the children, you're doing the right thing. Comment 2. Not the idiot. In a situation as complex as this, it's easy to second-guess decisions and feel at fault for unforeseen consequences. However, the well-being of the children must be the priority, and from your description, that seems to be your focus. The involvement of Child Protective Services is not a matter to be taken lightly, but it also serves as a necessary system to ensure the safety of children. Steph, being at a job interview, is an understandable reason for her absence, but it does not negate the fact that Alice was found in a vulnerable state, which is concerning. It's crucial now to engage in open and honest communication with all parties involved to ensure that the children have a supportive and stable environment moving forward. Comment 3. Not the idiot. It sounds like you are being a responsible and caring adult in a situation that quickly spiraled out of control. When Alice sprained her wrist, you were there to help, which is exactly what a good neighbour and family member should do. It's unfortunate that this incident led to CPS involvement, but it also highlights potential vulnerabilities in the family's arrangements that might have otherwise gone unnoticed. It's imperative now, more than ever, to ensure that Alice and her brother have consistent and nurturing care. While you feel responsible, remember that you cannot control the actions or reactions of others, including the dissolution of Enzo and Steph's marriage. It's commendable that you want to be there for the kids, and that alone shows you are not the jerk in this difficult scenario. If you liked this video, you'll probably like these too. Also, while you're here, please consider subscribing. It's your support that keeps this channel alive and allows me to make better and longer videos. Have a great day.